All right, well, welcome everyone to our latest Insight interview with Rebekah Remkiewicz, and she's going to be talking to us about student choice in the classroom. But let's go ahead and get started. Rebekah, can you please introduce yourself and tell us why you chose to become an educational leader?
Yes, so my students call me Ms. Rem. I'm the 8th grade teacher at Grattan School in the Denair area up in the Central Valley. And I also teach 7th grade math. And I didn't choose this life. The life chose me. And that goes back to when I was 14 and my grandfather told me that I was going to become an educator, and leadership just comes naturally. So it's all about leading by example.
Absolutely. And I know that you are a leader in that you go and you present and teach teachers. So you're certainly a teacher leader in both, most likely at your school site, but also across the Central Valley. So great job.
I'll put a quick plug in because I am a board member for Central California Q, and so I think it's important because this is we're breathing life back into an affiliate that was on the verge of extinction. So yes, I'm also a board member for CCQ.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, can you share some insight that you've gained with your experience in promoting student choice that may be beneficial to our viewers?
Yes. So this has been an especially good year, actually, for seeing positive outcomes with student choice. I always build some of that in, but I've over the years tried to work to be a little more flexible and understanding. Sometimes that means, looking at seeing the class as a whole having a little bit of trouble as a deadline approaches, and engaging them in it and letting them voice their concerns, and then adjusting. It doesn't give them absolute control, but it gives them what they need, because I believe very, very strongly that as long as we can give them the tools for success, then they will succeed. But if they're struggling on the whole, we need to look at ourselves and the what we've set up. But I've had a few projects throughout the year that has allowed students to make some decisions on their own and follow something that works for them in their learning. So an example of this, actually, I asked just before we got started, I was talking with a couple of my students, and I asked about what sorts of things stood out to them from this year. And one of my students pointed to, we did Pinewood Derby races last fall, but it wasn't just the Boy Scout type of Pinewood Derby. They not only had to construct their cars, they had to build their own ramps. And so each group had to do what they could with their cars and their ramps to maximize the gravitational force to get the best speed and best distance. And it says a lot to me that that's one that stood out, because it feels like eons ago. But and then in math, I've done a couple of interesting projects, but one in particular is their investment project, and they choose stocks and use a hypothetical budget, and then they use that budget to do hypothetical investments, and they have to follow their stocks for 2 weeks and document how the stocks perform. So they're making their own choices, they're making their own decisions, and then they have to follow certain guidelines, but they feel like they have a little more control on things.
So how have you found that has impacted their motivation and their learning? Clearly, the learning is sustainable because you're creating learning experiences that are memorable. But what have you found as far as the impact on motivation and on the academic learning in incorporating so much choice?
Generally speaking, I'm seeing more students complete assignments in a more timely manner. I'm seeing them more engaged. The outcome, the final product is better. It's been a turning point. A couple of these projects were turning points for some of my students, and like very positive turning points. And they feel, I sense that they're feeling more connected and more invested in what they're doing. And more of them are meeting with greater success as a result. I have, when it comes down to the grading, I'm able to check off all the points that I want to see. And overall, I'm seeing higher outcomes, but stronger outcomes. So.
Excellent. So have you always taught this way, or is this something that's a bit new for you? The reason I ask is if there are leaders out there that would like this, like teachers to gravitate to this and to start incorporating more choice in the classroom, what would that transition be like? How would you guide them in that? Is this something that you have always done, or is it something that you kind of built up to?
Somewhere in between there. I've always had aspects of this. I've tried to include some of the project-based learning. I think that when we develop more inquisitiveness within our students, then they're out, and I want them to go ask questions. And that's when they'll ask me a question in the classroom. I typically will respond with a question. Well, how do I do this? Well, I don't know. How do you do this? So there's always been aspects of this, but this is something that I've been growing over time. And it's just one of those things where I have looked at, when you open up a textbook and you see, a chapter on magnets. Well, we can read about magnets, or we can put them out around the classroom. And I don't, I set some parameters, but I don't want them to ask me, well, what do I do with this magnet? Go find something and see. And I had a group of science students 3 years or so ago that finally figured out. I gave them a magnet that was, I don't know, like maybe that big. They found a hook in the room, and they were able to lift a desk with that magnet. But I didn't tell them, well, go see, go try that. So my advice is, try new things. Some things are going to work, some things aren't, and it's okay if it doesn't work the way that we want it to every time. When I make a mistake in something as I'm teaching, I go, well, see, this just shows now I've learned and you've learned with me. Okay, let's try something else and see what works. I think part of leading by example is letting our students know that the only failure is to not try. That as long as they're trying, you might misstep, but if you learn from it and try something else or try it again, then it's worth it. And we as teachers need to not be afraid to do more of that.
Absolutely. And I would encourage leaders as well to model that kind of environment for their teachers. Mm-hmm. If you are going, as a teacher, Rebekah, would you prefer to go to a PD or staff meeting even where you are told what to do, or where you're given some choice and you can choose the sessions you want to go to? Maybe within that session, there's different stations you can explore for deeper learning. So I think that that's a lesson that we can extend to professional learning opportunities as well. So what are your thoughts on that, as far as those that you've attended and those that you have led, as far as incorporating choice, not just for students, but also for teachers?
I think I need to do a better job of it in the sessions that I lead. It's funny to lead a PD session and realize that I'm doing exactly what I'm trying to tell them not to do. Like, here, go back to your classroom and do this, but I could do the exact opposite to tell you how to do it. So that's one of my goals for the next year or so, is to incorporate more of what I'm trying to share into what I'm presenting. I know I like when I could go to a conference and I can look at the sketch and go, okay, I need to try this. And that, that the ed camp philosophy of, the smartest person in the room is the room, and the idea that if something's not working for you, go to another session. Like we aren't offended when you get up and you try, oh, this session's not working for me. It's not what I thought. Okay, let me go try something else. Having that freedom to not be locked into a seat in a room for for the full hour. You're sitting there. If it's not working, it's not working. I think I think a great example, though, of an awesome PD session, and I'm sure I know you've been to this one too, I think, is the one that Ed Campos does with his 360 math, when he goes in and he puts the sheets up all around the room. And so you're not sitting there being told, get your students out of the seat. Well, no, you're getting out of your seat and you're trying it yourself. Those types of sessions are the ones that I enjoy the most.
Absolutely. So I would say that might be a way for leaders to encourage their teachers to do this, is if they started leading their staff meetings even, and things like that way. But I love all the things that you've said about student choice and engaging students in projects. And I would definitely echo what you said about making sure that you have that growth mindset with your students as well. I think that's an important one. So what are some places, some books you've read, blogs to follow, people to follow regarding the topic of student choice that you would recommend to those that are more interested in this topic?
Okay, so I'm going to shameless plug eduawesomeadventure.com. No, that's mine, and I try to get stuff out there. I'm not keeping it as fresh and as current as I probably should, but there's more coming over the next few months. I have to say, what I think part of what helped my building up and incorporating more was, and I have been missing it terribly the last 3 months or so, is the Ditch Book chat on the Twitter chat on Thursday nights at 7:00. It is so filling to go and exchange ideas with other educators who are thinking more of, let's get out of the textbook and let's get the students doing their own things. So I guess in conjunction with that, following Matt Miller is a really good idea. Doug Robertson, he just did an activity in his classroom. What's his blog? He's the Weird Teacher.
Weird Teacher. Yeah, I know his. I believe on Twitter he's Weird. Is it Weird Teacher or Weird Ed or?
And he does a chat too.
Yeah. Yes.
So Doug definitely is a great one to check out, and he's always got something new and fresh and amazing happening in his classroom. What I like about him is that he's still in the classroom, and so you're seeing these ideas. Just like I said, go try something. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, adjust. That's exactly what he's doing, and he's letting us see that here, I'm going to try this, and letting us know how it goes.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. I think that's a great point, that it's important for us to follow and learn from those that are still doing the work, and that's really important. So I would definitely encourage everyone to definitely follow Rebekah and go to her blog, as well as certainly Doug Robertson. I agree about Matt Miller's. I believe his Twitter handle is Matt Miller. Yeah. And so I would definitely encourage teachers and leaders to go to those resources as well. So certainly, are there any other closing inspiration that you would like to give to our teachers and leaders to encourage them to just get started with incorporating more student and teacher choice?
Well, I think let me offer two extra plugs that are EDU folks. Leslie Odom Jr., who premiered the role of Aaron Burr in Hamilton, an American Musical, he has a relatively new book out that is called Failing Up. And all of this talk about not being afraid to fail, that is the theme of this book. And he talks about the teachers who made the difference. So I think, looking at outside the education circles that we're all in, and listening to what non-educators are saying about the educators who impacted their lives, it's a great thing. The other autobiography I'm reading right now is by Ice-T, and it's another really good one that's talking about how things during his formative years affected him, and he's got some interesting things. They're both on Twitter and worth checking out their Twitter feeds too. So I think listening outside of our education circles and seeing what made positive impacts on people when they were students, and thinking about those things. And then again, just don't be afraid to try something new, and show your students that it's okay to just try anything, ask questions, nurture curiosity, be Alice in Wonderland, curiouser and curiouser.
Absolutely. I love that. Yeah. Well, I've got an Alice in Wonderland. I'm a huge fan of that whole concept. So I've got my, I don't know if you could see it up there, but I've got a Alice in Wonderland poster up there. So yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so I would definitely echo all of those statements with you as well, Rebekah. So I want to thank you so much for being with us, and I want to thank our viewers for watching, and I want to encourage everyone to definitely visit siteleadersconnect.org, where you can follow great edu leaders and search in our searchable database, like Rebekah and others, and definitely check out the hashtag as well. We've got a lot of great things on Twitter that are going on. We keep hearing about it again and again on these Insight interviews. And so I definitely encourage everyone to get connected. Even if you don't have a Twitter account, at least just search some hashtags. Search hashtag Ditchbook, search hashtag SiteLeadsConnect, hashtag TLAP. There's some great ones out there. So thank you again, Rebekah, and everyone have a great day.